The Zarkith Dominion had ruled the stars for a very long time. They were powerful, rich, and feared by many. Their ships were sharp and fast. Their laws were strict and cruel. The Zarkith believed they were better than every other species. They did not care about fairness. They did not care about justice. What they wanted, they took. What they hated, they destroyed. To them, humans were not important. Humans were still new to space. They had no great empire. They had no strong army. So the Zarkith did not take Earth seriously. They believed humans could be pushed around, ignored, or erased without anyone noticing. One day, on a quiet trade post near the edge of the galaxy, 10 humans were working. The trade post was not a part of Earth or the Zarkith Dominion. It was a neutral place where all kinds of people came to buy and sell things. Workers, traders, pilots, and engineers from many planets visited the post every day. It was known for being peaceful. People trusted it. The 10 humans were part of the crew that helped keep the place running. Some fixed machines. Some guided ships. Others moved cargo or worked in control rooms. They were just doing their jobs. They had no weapons. They had no secrets. They were not breaking any rules. But one cold evening, a black Zarkith ship appeared. It did not send a signal. It did not ask for permission to land. It came in fast and silent. The ship docked without warning, and Zarkith soldiers walked out. They wore armor that covered their faces. They moved like shadows, quick and cold. They said nothing to anyone around them. They went straight to the 10 humans. They pointed at them and said they were guilty of a crime. No one knew what the crime was. No one heard any law being read. The soldiers gave no proof. There was no trial, no hearing, no judge. People who were nearby were confused. Some tried to ask what was happening, but the soldiers ignored them. The 10 humans were taken by force. Their names were never spoken. Their rights were never read. They were dragged onto the Zarkith ship, and then it left. Just like that, the humans were gone, taken into space, taken into silence. The other workers at the trade post stood in shock. They had never seen anything like it. They were afraid to speak. They knew that if they said the wrong thing, they could be next. The Zarkith were known for being ruthless. When they acted, they left no trace behind. At first, no one knew what had happened. Earth tried to send messages. Earth asked questions, but the Zarkith said nothing. Their leaders gave no answers. Their systems blocked all requests. It was like the event had never happened, like those 10 humans had never lived. For days, Earth waited, families waited, friends waited, but all they received was silence. Quiet, cold, and final. Then, a week later, something strange happened. A message appeared in the deep net, hidden among data lines. It was short and hard to trace, but someone had taken a risk to share it. The message said that the 10 humans had been executed by the Zarkith. No trial, no warning, just a quiet death in the dark. The message hit Earth like a storm. People cried out in sadness and anger. The families of the lost demanded justice. The news spread quickly across every colony, station, and ship. Each of the 10 had a story. One was a mother, one was a student, one was a ship mechanic, another was a nurse. They were not spies, they were not soldiers. They were ordinary people just trying to make a life in space. Their lives had been stolen. Their names had been erased. The Zarkith Dominion thought no one would care. They believed that Earth would stay quiet. They thought the galaxy would turn away and forget. They believed fear would keep everyone still, but they were wrong. Earth had changed. In the past, Earth might have cried and moved on, but not now. Now Earth had colonies across space. It had engineers, builders, and thinkers spread out over hundreds of worlds. It had allies. It had power. And more than anything, it had memory. Across Earth and beyond, people began to talk. They shared the names of the 10. They told their stories. They lit candles. They posted pictures. They created stars in their names on data maps. The pain turned into purpose. The sadness turned into fire. Slowly, something began to grow. A quiet plan, a careful plan, not wild, not loud, but real. Earth did not want war. Earth did not want revenge, but Earth wanted justice. Earth wanted the truth. The galaxy watched. Some looked away, too afraid to speak against the Zarkith. Others whispered in private that what the Zarkith did was wrong. A few sent messages to Earth, quiet messages of support, but none dared to challenge the Zarkith in public. Their power was too big. Their reach was too wide. They had ruled the stars for too long, but Earth had something the Zarkith didn't understand: unity. The 10 humans were not just 10 people. They were sons, daughters, workers, and friends. Each had someone who loved them, and now each had a world that remembered them. Earth did not shout. It did not scream. It watched. It listened. And it prepared. Meanwhile, the Zarkith continued as if nothing had happened. They held their meetings. They made their deals. They walked through their shining halls. They laughed and said the humans had learned their place. To them, it was over. A message had been sent, but they did not know what had really begun. Deep in Earth systems, teams of planners began to meet. They did not wear uniforms. They did not raise flags, but they shared the same goal. Some were soldiers, some were scientists. Others were leaders of small colonies. But all of them had one thing in common: they had lost someone, and they were not going to let the Zarkith get away with it. It started with simple questions. Where were the weak points in the Zarkith systems? Which stations depended on Earth's tech? Where were the blind spots? What did the Zarkith need to survive? These questions were asked in secret. Quiet rooms, encrypted messages. No one shouted. No one posted about it. But every day the plan grew clearer. Still, the galaxy saw only silence. No loud voices came from Earth. No threats. No armies. And so the Zarkith smiled and continued with their rule. But they did not see the storm that was building. A storm not made of fire, but of silence, of strength, of smart hands and careful steps. A storm born from sorrow and shaped by unity. The Zarkith Dominion had erased 10 humans in the dark. They had done it in secret. They had tried to scare the galaxy. But they had forgotten the most important rule: every life matters. And when those lives are taken, others will rise. Earth was not crying anymore. Earth was not waiting. Earth was listening. And Earth was getting ready. The 10 humans who were taken by the Zarkith Dominion were not just workers. They were not nameless or forgotten. Each one had a full life, filled with dreams, hard work, and people who cared for them. They were not rich. They were not famous. But they mattered deeply to someone, and that made them important. One of the 10 was named Elena Mara. She was only 25 years old. Elena had grown up on Earth in a small village where the stars were bright at night. She always looked up and dreamed of being part of space. Her parents were simple farmers, and they worked hard to send her to school. Elena loved to fix things. She could repair anything: ships, machines, even old computers no one else wanted. She became a top engineer on her planet. She didn't ask for praise. She just wanted to help. When the chance came to work on the trade post, she took it. She said goodbye to her family and promised to visit. She never got the chance. Another was named Tomas Vell. Tomas was a father. He had 3 children, all under the age of 10. He worked long hours to support them. He didn't have much money, but he had a strong heart. Tomas worked in the cargo area of the station. He made sure ships were loaded safely and that nothing got lost. He had never broken a rule in his life. Every credit he earned, he sent home. He loved to tell stories to his children through video calls, making them laugh with silly voices and funny faces. After he was taken, his children kept waiting for his call. It never came. Jayanor was also one of the 10. She had no family left, but she had built a new one among her team. She had once been a space medic in a war on a mining moon. She had saved hundreds of lives, but no one gave her awards. She didn't want them. After the war, she just wanted peace. She became the medical officer at the trade post. Jaya always brought soup to sick workers and stayed up late watching over injured travelers. People trusted her. She had helped everyone. But when the Zarkith came, no one could help her. Then there was Malik, a quiet man with sharp eyes and steady hands. He was a technician who repaired small shuttle engines. People said he could fix a ship with just a toolbox and a flashlight. He never talked much, but when he did, it was always kind. He used to sing old Earth songs while he worked. His sister back home ran a spaceport, and he would always send her tips on how to improve her systems. They were best friends, even though they lived light years apart. After his disappearance, his sister tried everything she could to find him, but no one answered her calls. Another was Hina Tao. She was young, barely 20, but she was smart and brave. She had won a scholarship to study deep space energy systems. Instead of staying on Earth in safety, she asked to work on the outer rim. She said it would teach her more than books ever could. She helped keep the power running on the trade post. Her reports were always perfect. Her smile made even tired old captains feel young. Hina was the youngest of the 10. Her parents, proud of her, still waited for her voice on every holiday. Her last message was only 3 lines long. "I miss you. I'm learning so much. I'll call soon." One man, Kale Don, had once been a soldier. He had fought in defense of a small moon colony that was under attack by pirates. After the battle, he had left the military. He said he was done with violence. He wanted to help build, not destroy. Kale had started a new life as a security trainer, teaching people how to stay safe. He had never hurt anyone on the trade post. In fact, he had once stopped a fight between 2 angry pilots by simply speaking calmly and standing between them. He had written a book called Peace is Strength. His students loved him. When news of his death reached them, they held a quiet service in the dark, lighting candles in his memory. Then there was Mei-Lin Zhao. She worked in data logistics, keeping track of ships and deliveries. She had a sharp brain and a soft heart. Mei-Lin loved poetry and often sent her friends poems with their morning messages. She believed that kindness was a form of strength. Her husband, a historian on Earth, had saved all of her letters and messages. After she disappeared, he read them every night, trying to hear her voice in the words. He later made a book of her poems and gave copies to students at her old school. Another victim, Raoul Jetty, was once a miner. He had spent years deep under the ground of a red moon digging for rare minerals. He had hurt his back and could no longer work heavy jobs, but he didn't give up. He retrained as a ship inspector and got a job at the trade post. Raoul was proud of his second chance. He often said, "Hard times make strong people." He had a wife who worked as a teacher and a son who played music. Raoul's last message to his son was a video of stars, with a song playing softly in the background. His son still plays that song every night before bed. Ishan Pradeep was different. He was a dreamer, a science fiction writer. He worked part-time at the post, managing transport codes, but his real love was writing stories about people living among the stars. He wanted to show how even small people could do great things. He believed stories could change minds. He had written over 20 books, though only a few had been published. Many of his readers didn't even know he worked on the post. When they found out he had been taken, they started sharing his stories again. One of his books, Starlight Doesn't Bow, became a symbol of hope for many. And the 10th was Nora James, a systems monitor who made sure all station signals were clear. Nora was calm, fair, and always listening. She had a twin sister back on Earth who worked in government. They used to talk every day. When Nora vanished, her sister stopped smiling. She also stopped waiting. She started pushing for answers, and her questions reached far, very far. These 10 people were not warriors. They were not spies. They were not dangerous. They were just trying to live, to work, to help, and to keep moving forward in a galaxy that often seemed too big. The Zarkith saw them as weak, as easy targets, but they did not realize who these humans were. Each one of them was tied to someone strong. Each had family or friends in important places. One was loved by a famous scientist who worked with Earth's Space Council. Another had a brother who led a colony of 20,000 people. A third had a wife who was a top systems hacker for Earth's deep net defense. They were not just simple workers. They were deeply connected to people who could move worlds. The Zarkith made a mistake. They thought they had removed nobodies, but they had cut the heart from the very people who held Earth together, and Earth felt it deeply. At first, the people connected to the 10 tried to find answers the normal way. They sent requests. They filed reports. They asked politely. They believed that there must have been a mistake, but there was no reply. And as more silence came, their sadness turned to pain. Their pain turned to anger. And anger, when shared by enough people, becomes action. It was not just the 10 who mattered. It was the lives they touched. The families, friends, co-workers, students, readers, and teammates. People who had loved them. People who remembered their kindness, their smiles, their work, and their dreams. These 10 humans lit a fire that would not go out. They became more than just people. They became symbols of injustice, of cruelty, of everything that had gone too far. On Earth, memorials began to rise. In schools, children made paper stars with the names of the 10. On colonies, flags were lowered. At spaceports, captains paused for a full minute of silence before launching. Around digital campfires and inside secret network rooms, people whispered their names and said, "They mattered. They were ours, and we will not forget them." The Zarkith thought no one would care, but each of the 10 had someone strong, someone brave, someone who would not let it go. Earth was listening, and Earth was remembering. And now, Earth was starting to respond. The world did not hear Earth scream. Earth did not send rockets or fire lasers. There were no grand speeches or angry leaders pounding on tables, at least not at first. Earth was quiet, but the kind of quiet that comes before a storm. The people who had lost someone, family, friends, coworkers, did not shout. They didn't cry in public. They didn't beg for help. They sat with their sadness, and then they stood up, together, and they began to plan. These plans were not like war plans. They were not loud. They were not full of fire. They were slow, careful, and smart. The people of Earth had learned many lessons in their short time in space. They knew that loud anger only brought more pain, but quiet action, steady and true, could shake a galaxy. So they began with something small. One of the first things they did was refuse. Earth and its colonies had made many tools for the galaxy. They had engineers, coders, and builders who created important systems. Ships needed Earth's fuel stabilizers. Stations needed Earth's food purifiers. Security gates ran on Earth scanning software. For years, the Zarkith Dominion had used these things without thinking. They had bought them, yes, but they had never respected the hands that made them. Now Earth stopped sending them. It started quietly. A few supply ships delayed for repairs. A couple of deliveries lost in deep space. Some code updates failed to transmit. No one raised a flag. No one said, "We're punishing you." They simply stopped helping. And soon, strange things began to happen in Zarkith space. One major cargo hub had to shut down because the fuel readers stopped working. A patrol station near the edge of their territory lost power after a cooling system failed. On a luxury ship, the food turned bad in the middle of a long journey. People got sick. Some blamed poor planning. Others said it was just bad luck. But the Zarkith leaders started to notice a pattern. Every problem traced back to a human system, a human part, a human update that never came. Still, Earth said nothing. When asked, they smiled and said they were checking things. "We are doing our best," they said. "Please wait." But behind the kind words, a quiet wall was rising. Earth was slowly pulling away. The second step came through finance. Zarkith banks had long used human software to manage trade across the stars. It was fast, secure, and trusted. But Earth changed a single line of code, just one. It was so small that most systems didn't notice. But the change created small delays in money transfers. Not enough to crash anything, just enough to annoy, just enough to slow down Zarkith trade. Important shipments were held up, deals were missed, traders got angry, but no one could prove anything. And when the Zarkith leaders demanded answers, Earth simply replied, "We are upgrading our systems. Please be patient." Behind the scenes, the humans were very patient. They were watching every credit move, every ship dock, every delay. They were not shouting. They were learning. And then came the third step, information. The Zarkith had always been good at hiding the truth. They controlled the news on many worlds. They erased things they didn't like. They paid off leaders to say nothing. But humans were very good at finding cracks. They slipped into networks, into old channels, into forgotten corners of data. One day, a message appeared on a public screen in a busy Zarkith market. It was a short video showing the 10 humans who had vanished. It showed their faces, their jobs, their families. It said their names. It told the truth. Taken without cause, killed without trial. The message ended with the words, "We remember." Zarkith guards tried to shut it down, but it kept popping up, on signs, on screens, even on printed pages. Someone had printed thousands of flyers and dropped them across the city. The people picked them up. They read them. Some ignored them. Some felt curious. But some felt something stronger, shame. The Zarkith leaders called it human lies. But the people had questions, and questions are powerful. Meanwhile, Earth kept moving. In labs and workstations across many planets, small teams were building new things. Not weapons, but tools. Smart tools. They made devices that could listen, watch, and send signals through space without being caught. They made drones that looked like rocks. They made machines that could fix systems in secret or break them. Some of these tools found their way onto Zarkith stations. No one knew how. One day, a guard camera would stop working. Another day, a storage unit would lock shut and refuse to open. No damage, no harm, just small, strange things. Things that made Zarkith security nervous. They sent out patrols. They searched, but they found nothing, because the humans weren't there in person. They were shadows, and shadows don't leave footprints. But this revenge was not only in machines. Across the galaxy, humans began to speak. Pilots told stories. Traders shared tales. Teachers taught the names of the 10 in their classes. Children in colonies asked, "Why did the Zarkith take them?" Artists painted their faces. Writers told their stories in poems and songs. Musicians made new tunes with their names as titles. In one mining colony, a worker carved all 10 names into the side of a hill where everyone could see them. People began to leave small lights there every night. The lights grew in number, glowing in the dark like stars. The Zarkith couldn't erase this. On some worlds, other species, non-humans, began to ask questions too. They had also felt the Zarkith's cruelty. They had seen what power without care looked like. And now they saw the humans standing up, quietly, carefully, but bravely. These other groups started to help. Some passed along Zarkith secrets. Some shared maps. Others warned humans of danger before it came. They did not fight, not yet, but they opened doors that had once been closed. Back on Earth, the movement had no name. It had no leader, but it had heart, and it had memory. One young woman named Leary, the sister of one of the 10, began recording a video series called Voices of the Lost. In each video, she spoke calmly and told the story of one of the victims. She added photos, memories, and old messages. The videos spread faster than anyone expected. Millions watched. And when she ended each episode, she said, "We do not forget, and we do not forgive." Some said it was dangerous. Some said she would get hurt. But Leary didn't stop, and people followed. Revenge does not always come with fire. Sometimes it comes like a slow wave, soft but unstoppable. The Zarkith had struck fast and hard. The humans replied slowly and smartly. But even a small cut, when made in the right place, can weaken the strongest shield. In less than a year, the Zarkith Dominion was not the same. Their ships were late. Their people were nervous. Their leaders whispered in closed rooms. They knew something was wrong, but they didn't know how deep it went. Because Earth was not working alone. Across many stars, voices were rising, and they all carried the same message. You took from us, and now we take back. The revenge had started, quiet, clever, and bold. And it was only the beginning. At first, the Zarkith Dominion ignored everything. They thought humans were weak. They thought Earth was far away, slow, and foolish. When the small problems started, they laughed. A few late shipments, a couple of machines acting strange, a bit of money missing here and there. It meant nothing to them. They believed humans were noisy but harmless. Let them cry, one general said. Let them protest, they will forget. All creatures forget. The Zarkith had seen it before. Many races lost people. Some were angry, but most gave up. Most moved on. That is what the Zarkith had always counted on. Fear, silence, time. But this time it was different. Small reports started to arrive at the Zarkith High Command. These reports came from many places. One came from a mining planet. Another came from a trade station. Another from a weapons factory. Each report talked about a strange delay, a power failure, a shipment that never came, and the word human kept showing up. The leader of intelligence, a sharp-minded alien named Koeth Va, looked closely at the patterns. At first, he saw nothing special, just little accidents. But when he placed the reports side by side, something strange appeared. There was a path, a shape, a slow circle of disruption closing in. Koeth Va called for more information. He asked the other governors, generals, and station heads to send updates on anything unusual. Within 3 days, his screen was full. The list was growing fast. Hundreds of small incidents, none loud, none violent, but all connected to Earth. He read about a cargo ship that arrived missing most of its food that had been stored by human hands. He saw pictures of fuel stations that showed full tanks but gave out empty readings. He even read one report where the docking clamps on a Zarkith battleship refused to release until someone shouted a human word. This was not normal. This was not an accident. He brought the data to the High Council. The room was filled with old voices, proud and cold. They listened. They scoffed. One of them, a noble named Tresgal, waved his hand and said, "These are pebbles. Let the humans throw their stones. The Dominion is made of mountains." But Koeth Va was not convinced. Something deep inside him felt the cold breath of fear. The humans were not fighting with guns. They were fighting with silence, with patience, with planning. And that kind of enemy was harder to stop. Then came the whisper reports. Whisper reports were secret messages sent by spies or informants. They were usually unreliable, but when many say the same thing, it means something. These reports said humans were not acting alone. They were making friends, secret friends. Other species were starting to help them, quietly, carefully, but help all the same. One report said a group of engineers on a neutral moon had refused to repair a Zarkith ship. Another said a group of teachers had started showing human videos in their schools. Another told of a market where people began to wear little metal pins with the names of the 10 lost written in human letters. The Zarkith Council still didn't care. "We are the law," they said. We are the order, we do not fear stories. But Koeth Va saw the signs. He saw the waves forming under the surface, waves strong enough to crack the largest ship. To test his fears, he ordered a secret mission. He sent a small team of spies to a moon colony known for trade. It was not a human colony, but humans passed through often. The spies were told to listen, to watch, to report. They returned in silence, but they brought back something unexpected. It was a song. A short, simple song sung by children in the streets. The words were not hateful. They did not call for war, but they said names, 10 names, the 10 who had vanished. And the song ended with a human word that had no true Zarkith translation. It meant something between justice and never again. This song was being sung by alien children, in a non-human place, and yet the names were human, the meaning was human, and the feeling behind the words made Koeth Va sit still for a long time. He knew now, the humans were building something more dangerous than weapons. They were building memory, and memory can outlive empires. He warned the council again. They are not fighting us with fire, he said. They are fighting with story, with shame, with slow hands on old wires, and they are winning even if we do not bleed. This time the council grew quiet. They began to listen. A new command was given. Find the human leaders, stop them, stop the movement. But there was a problem. There were no leaders. That was what made the humans so hard to stop. They didn't follow one person. They followed pain. They followed honor. They followed loss. Every group acted on its own, but with the same heart, the same reason. You could not shoot a heart. You could not jail an idea. The Zarkith tried anyway. They arrested human traders. They closed Earth-linked businesses. They banned human-made tools, but nothing changed. The damage kept growing. The delays continued. The missing shipments increased. The song kept spreading. Koeth Va requested another mission. This time, he asked to speak with a captured human worker. Someone from a nearby station had been taken in for questioning. The worker was old, calm, and quiet. He had soft eyes and wrinkled hands. Koeth asked him many things: who was in charge? Where were the plans? How far would Earth go? The human smiled sadly. There is no plan, he said. There is only pain, and pain never forgets. That night, Koeth Va did not sleep. More reports came in the next few days. A food center on the outer edge of Zarkith space lost all its cooling units. A long-range ship returning from patrol found its controls had been changed. The maps showed false paths. They had to land by guessing. No one was hurt, but trust was broken. The Zarkith army grew tense. Soldiers whispered. Officers began checking their own gear 3 times. Some refused to use human-made tools, but Earth had built too much, too deep. Removing humans now would mean rebuilding everything. And Earth knew it. That's what scared Koeth Va most. The humans weren't rushing. They weren't shouting. They were just waiting, acting, pressing the weak spots, making each step count. They had become patient, and patient enemies are the most dangerous kind. One Zarkith admiral, a proud warrior named Juthvel, laughed when he saw the reports. "Let me fly," he said. I will burn a path to Earth's moon. I will show them fear." The council agreed. Juthvel took a fleet of 6 warships. They set course for the edge of Earth's protected zone. They expected fear. They expected surrender. They did not expect silence. When they reached the zone, nothing moved. No ships came out. No guns fired. The stars looked down, cold and quiet. Then their ships began to change. One ship's lights blinked off and stayed off. Another lost its voice. No radio, no signal, nothing. A third ship began spinning slowly in place, as if pulled by something invisible. Juthvel ordered a full stop, but no one could answer him. The screens were dark, the engines frozen. And then, across every screen on every ship, a message appeared in human text. "We know your names, we know your tools, we know your fears, leave now, or lose more." The message disappeared. The ships came back online one by one. No damage, no fire, just silence. Juthvel returned without glory. He said nothing at the next council meeting. Now even the proud began to worry. Not because humans had fought, but because they hadn't needed to. Back in his quiet chamber, Koathva placed another pin on his growing map. A web of small actions. A net of quiet revenge. A storm made of tiny raindrops. He whispered to himself, "They are coming, and we may not see them until it is too late." And far across the galaxy, Earth continued its slow march. Not with guns, but with memory, whispers, and careful steps. And the Zarketh Dominion finally began to understand. The humans were not afraid. On Earth, the response to the 10 lost humans was not loud. There were no marches, no public speeches, and no flashing headlines. Instead, something deeper began to grow, something quiet, careful, and powerful. Leaders from all parts of Earth came together in secret. They were not all generals or politicians. Some were scientists, others were engineers, hackers, or planners. Many of them had lost someone. All of them had a reason to act. In underground rooms with no windows, they met without cameras or news. They didn't come to talk about peace. They came to plan victory without starting a war. Earth's plan was not to destroy. It was to take control little by little until the enemy realized they had made a terrible mistake. The Zarketh Dominion had relied on human tools on machines built with Earth's designs. That was their weakness. Earth had built their space stations, their food systems, and their travel beacons. Now Earth would use that knowledge. Every group worked on something important. One group made maps of every Zarketh trade route. Another studied how their power stations worked. Some worked on their money systems, while others studied air and water machines used in space. These teams didn't attack. They found quiet ways to make things glitch, not to break, but to send a message. We are still here. At the same time, artists and storytellers worked to keep the memory of the 10 alive. They made songs, pins, and pictures that spread across the stars. Soon, children on faraway planets were humming sad songs without knowing where they came from. People began asking questions. The truth began to grow. The Zarketh tried to act like nothing had happened, but Earth was already inside their systems, shaping events without being seen. No ships fired, no armies marched, but the plan was working. Every choice was made with care. If a machine failed, it looked like bad luck. If a shipment vanished, it looked like a mistake. But behind every moment there was a hand from Earth, quietly guiding things. And just in case the Zarkith found out and attacked, Earth had prepared shelters, backups, and shields. They hoped for peace, but they were ready for war. The Earth's leaders did not seek revenge with fire. They wanted justice through control. Each meeting began with 10 seconds of silence. 1 second for each human who was taken. Those 10 seconds reminded everyone why they were there. Not for hate, not for fame, but for memory, for honor, and for the future. Earth's plan was not loud, but it was strong, and it had already begun. The plan had been made. It was ready. Now it was time to move. But humans did not strike with bombs or giant ships. They did not send fleets or drop fire from the sky. That was not the way this battle would be fought. No, the humans did something different, something smarter, something quiet. It began with little things. A light blinked red in a space station far from any planet, just one light. It blinked when it should have stayed green. The workers there checked it, but they could not find anything wrong. Then the air systems paused for 5 seconds, just 5, long enough to feel strange, long enough to make people wonder. On another station, a food shipment never arrived. It was sent. It was tracked, but it never made it. It didn't crash. It didn't get stolen. It just vanished. The workers had enough supplies to last, so no one panicked. But they wrote a report. Shipment missing. No reason found. More and more, these small problems appeared. Doors that didn't open on time. Screens that glitched for no reason. Maps that turned slightly in the wrong direction. Not enough to stop anything, but just enough to break the rhythm. Just enough to make people look over their shoulders. At first, the Zarkith commanders thought it was normal. Old machines, lazy workers, mistakes, that's what they told each other. Nothing to worry about. But it kept happening. In a mining colony near a gas giant, the gravity machines shut down for 2 minutes. People floated out of their chairs. Water drifted through the air. It was not dangerous, but it was strange. Afterward, when they checked the system logs, the machines said nothing had gone wrong. It was like the 2 minutes had never happened. Everywhere things started acting strange, and always the same pattern, small, silent, and sudden. Back on Earth, the teams who had built the plan were watching closely. They were careful. They wanted to test their reach. They wanted to see how far their hands could go before the enemy noticed. They were not disappointed. One team, deep in the mountains of South America, sent a small code into the stars. The code moved like a ghost. It entered a signal tower on a moon near Zarkith space. The moon was cold with few people living there, but the tower was important. It helped control all traffic going in and out of that part of space. The code did not shut the tower down. That would be too obvious. Instead, it slowed the messages, only by a few seconds. But those few seconds caused confusion in over 70 ships. Some turned back. Some had to wait longer. A few were sent to the wrong path entirely. Again, the Zarkith called it a glitch. But one commander, a tall, thin Zarkith male with dark blue skin, started to frown. He had seen patterns before. He had fought in wars, and this did not feel like broken machines. This felt like something else. Still, no one listened to him, not yet. While some human teams worked on space systems, others focused on money. In the capital world of the Zarkith Dominion, the rich lived in high towers. Their homes floated above the clouds. They never worried about food or power or air. Their computers showed numbers that grew every second. Money flowed like water. But one day, for 10 minutes, all the numbers froze. People looked at their screens in shock. Was it a bug, a crash, a hack? The numbers came back, but they were not the same. Some were missing. Some had doubled. Some had strange shapes where digits should be. Panic began to grow. People shouted. They called their banks. The banks called their engineers, but no one could explain what happened. It was fixed later. The numbers went back to normal, or so they were told. But trust had been broken, and when money trust is broken, fear spreads fast. At the same time, on a quiet planet near the edge of the Dominion, a weapons factory shut down. No alarm, no attack, no sound. Just one message blinking on every screen. Update complete. What update? No one knew. The machines would not turn on again. The humans had done it. They had shut down a factory by simply changing one line of code they had written years ago, hidden deep inside the machine's brain. And no one saw it happen. Ships began to stop working the way they used to. Fuel didn't burn as fast. Maps didn't load on time. Voice messages took longer to send. Sometimes ships even turned the wrong way for just a second before correcting themselves. The crews were confused. The commanders were confused. The galaxy was confused. But Earth was calm. Every step was planned. Every move was counted. On a planet where Zarkith officers trained their young soldiers, the sound systems played a strange song one morning. It was not part of their schedule. No one had put it there. It was soft. It had no words, but it made the soldiers stop. They listened. Some closed their eyes, some frowned, some looked scared. Later, one officer would say, it sounded like sadness, but also warning. The humans were not just attacking systems. They were entering minds. Even the smallest places felt the change. On a cargo ship carrying metal parts, the captain found a tiny sticker under her chair. It was written in Galactic Common, "We remember the 10." She had no idea who placed it there. She removed it, but the next day it was back, this time on the mirror in her room. The sticker didn't harm her. It didn't cause a fight. But she could not stop thinking about it. Across the stars, humans kept going. They never struck hard. They never shouted. They just kept showing up without being seen. They took over airlocks and made them blink. They slowed elevators. They confused robot arms in loading bays. They made power flicker for just a few seconds at a time. Always small, always strange, but always growing. The Zarkith Dominion started to worry. Not because their ships were exploding, not because their cities were burning, but because everything felt wrong. They could not name it, they could not stop it. And worst of all, they could not find who was doing it. That was the true power of Earth's plan. It did not fight with fire. It fought with shadows. The Dominion tried to fix things. They called in experts. They rewrote software. They blamed their own workers. But nothing helped. The humans had built too much. They had touched too many systems, and now they were everywhere and nowhere. A report was sent to the High Council of Zarkith. It was long, full of strange data and failed answers. One part stood out. It was written in bold. The systems are not failing. They are being guided. At last, the leaders began to see. This was not chaos. This was control. And the humans were holding the strings. Back on Earth, the teams watched the stars light up with questions. They did not cheer. They did not brag. They just moved on to the next step. The attacks would not stop. They had only just begun. And the message was clear. We told you to stop. You didn't listen. Now feel what silence can do. The Zarkith Dominion had finally grown nervous. For weeks, strange things kept happening. Ships stopped working. Supplies disappeared. Messages were lost. They had tried to ignore it, but the signs were now too big to miss. Something was wrong. The humans were doing something, and the Zarkith could feel it. So they decided to set a trap. They picked an old space station at the edge of the galaxy. It used to be a trade center, but now it was broken and quiet. They sent out a message from it. The message said they wanted peace. It said they wanted to talk, but this was a lie. The message was bait. Around the station, the Zarkith hid their ships. They placed hundreds of warships behind moons and inside asteroid fields. Each ship was silent. The lights were off. The weapons were ready. They were waiting for a human ship to show up. Their plan was to act surprised, then attack. They thought they would catch the humans by surprise and end the problem in one blow. They were proud of their plan. They thought it was smart. They had used it before and it worked. But this time they were wrong. Earth saw the message. Of course they did. Human satellites and scouts watched everything. The message was fake and Earth knew it, but they didn't respond. They didn't send a ship. They waited. Then, without making a sound, they began to move. No one saw them come. No one saw them act. But things started changing. First, one Zarkith ship lost power for 1 second. Then another ship's lights flickered. The crews thought it was just bad wiring. They didn't worry. But humans were already inside their systems. They had placed small machines in the Zarkith networks months ago, machines no one noticed, machines that waited in silence. When the trap was set, those machines woke up. Slowly, the Zarkith ships began to fail. One by one, their engines turned off. Their weapons would not aim. Their maps showed the wrong stars. The captains gave orders, but nothing worked. The computers stopped taking commands. The ships were not being attacked with bombs. They were being taken apart from the inside. Then something strange happened. The station, which was supposed to be empty, lit up. Its screens showed a pattern of symbols. The symbols were a message. Most did not understand it, but Earth did. The message was clear. We are already here. That was when the Zarkith leaders realized their trap had been reversed. They were the ones being watched. They were the ones being hunted. Inside the station, hidden machines had waited for years. They had been planted by humans long before the peace message was ever sent. Those machines sent signals to the ships. They passed through wires and metal. They turned off doors, lights, and air systems. The Zarkith soldiers tried to fight back, but they couldn't even open a door. They were stuck inside their own ships. The commanders back home watched their screens. One by one, every ship around the station went dark. No signals, no energy, no escape. Then on the main screen, three simple words appeared: "Don't chase ghosts." The room went quiet. The top Zarkith general sat down slowly. His plan had failed. His ships were not damaged. They were useless. And the humans had not fired a single shot. The trap had been clever, but the humans had been more clever. The Zarkith had tried to use old tricks, but humans had studied them. They knew how the Zarkith thought, and they stayed patient. They did not rush. They did not shout. They waited until the Zarkith walked into their own trap. The Zarkith fleet floated in space, cold and powerless. Their soldiers were still alive but helpless. Their ships could not move. Their systems could not talk. They could only wait in the dark. They had no idea what else the humans might do next, and that was the scariest part. The humans had never even shown their faces. No warship, no fighter, just silence. This was a new kind of power, not loud, not bright, just smart and quiet. The galaxy had never seen anything like it before, and now the Zarkith knew they were not the hunters anymore. They were the prey, and Earth had set the perfect trap.